Hi everybody, this is Tyler Young. Welcome back to Architecture 5610. In that last video, I kind of left off with play around with Rhino, explore some of the commands, see how familiar you can get. I really just recommend that so that way some things start clicking. I also will have a PDF available that shows some commands, and you can just kind of run through that PDF, test out each of those commands individually, so that way as we go through any of these tutorials, it'll make a little bit more sense and you'll know already a little bit more about what I'm talking about. With that in mind, I'm gonna just kind of make this video introducing the techniques. I'm not gonna get super deep into scaling and trying to get it to be like all to the exact same scale. I'm just gonna kind of get rolling here, because what I also have is a longer format video that is truly like step by step watching me roll through this as I did it for the first time. So the first step is really to just go with the picture command. So I'm just typing in picture, and fortunately Rhino is going to remember where I grabbed my last picture from, so it's just going to take me to where I'll get this next one. And an important thing to know is I have multiple images. I've got this section, I've got the rear elevation of the building, I've got a section through the other direction, I've got this other section here, and I've got this floor plan. So the floor plan is really going to be the generator for getting started here. I would just start in the floor plan and then start doing probably the very famous elevation that you see I already have in the image down to the left. But so I'm just going to open this up, and it's just going to make me click one point and then a second point for the opposite corner. And so the thing that you'll notice now is I just dropped an image in here. And as I use this gumball little window pane grid, you can see that as I drag this over to the building that I already have, like, it's not even close. You know, this this row of windows, you can see these double lines here would be these windows. I've aligned this one edge here, but on this side, you know, we're not even close. But so that's what I'm talking about when I say, you know, we're not going to worry too intensely about getting the scale perfectly right in this video, because I do that in the other video. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into top view, and I'm just going to show you this properties window. So as you select any object, you'll see what the object type is, and you'll have all these other buttons that you might not know what they are yet. So this little one that, if you look real close, looks like a paint tube. If you click that, that is the materials window. So you'll actually just click over here on this material icon, and then the thing that should already be highlighted is actually the render material, which is essentially when you're creating a picture, or when you're placing a picture inside of Rhino, Rhino is drawing a surface and then taking an image and kind of re-understanding the image to be a render material and scaling it along with that surface when we brought that in. But so now we have this render material over here, which is our image. And what we can do is we can bump up the transparency of this. I'm going to go with about 40-45%, really anywhere in there is fine. I'm going to do the same thing to the other image. Now I've got two kind of slightly transparent images. If you stick them over top of each other, you can kind of see both sets of line work simultaneously. That's important, because if you were to go over here and use the polyline command, and in particular, if you've got your layers set up, or if you don't have them set up yet, I know I haven't really talked much about layers, but the default layer is always going to be black. And so if you start drawing a line in black over top of the black of an image, it's going to be really hard to see where your line work is. And if I didn't make this slightly transparent, this wouldn't be as gray as it is. It would be more black and therefore harder to see. But so that's why I'm going to actually right click in this layers window here, and that kind of slice of cake layered icon there, that's your layers window. So I'm just going to right click in the blank space here and go with new layer. And now I'm just going to say image tracing as the main layer here. And then I'm actually going to go in and make a new sublayer, and I'm going to call this outline curves. And now I'm going to change the color of this by just double clicking, or I can actually single clicking. If you just single click into the colored square there, you can then pick a color from this color palette. I never really like to use the kind of ring and the gradient chart here. A lot of times I'll just use the custom color list and just pick one. So I'm going to go with a color that doesn't blur into the gray of my background so you guys can see it well enough. I'm just going to go with red. And now I'm also going to select this curve that I already drew, and I'm going to go back over here to my layers tab or my layers panel, and if you double click on the outline curves layer that you might have just made, that'll set that to the active layer. And then with this line that I've already drawn selected, this is how you can move things to other layers. So I'm just going to right click on this outline curves in the layers tab, and I'm just going to scroll down until I find change object layer. And now when I unselect, or I just click off to the side to deselect this object, you can see that that line is now red. It is still kind of hard to see, right? It's a thin line. So you just want to pick a color that works well for your eyes on your screen. You know, it might not be red. Maybe you'd want to go with blue or cyan or something like that. So you can just change that color and just pick something that works well for you. And then I'm just gonna drag this line over here because I think that already starts to line up really well. And I want to show you this one technique. So as I have this line already set and it seems like it's well lined up, I'm going to draw this other line segment here, and I'm just gonna kind of do that random, just kind of aligning to where the pixels are. I'm not gonna measure it real precisely. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but right now you see I have ortho on, and so it's kind of yelling at me, wanting me to go either horizontal or vertical, but that doesn't really seem to align so well. So what I'm looking at when I'm doing a diagonal is I'm just looking at the kind of zigzag of these pixels, and I'm just going to be consistent because that's all you can really do with something like this. So if you have that line, square of pixels here, you just want to kind of look somewhere further down and try to get it to line up where the line that I draw is only touching one part. You know, it's only touching that upper ridge of each of like this little kind of staircase of pixels as we look at it. So I'm just gonna try to align that to like the upper one there, and then I'm gonna hit enter. And so now you see I have this one line that's short, and this other line that's a polyline that's made of two segments, and then this one other one here. So I'm actually gonna explode this one that's already joined together. So that's the explode command. And then I'm going to select these two because, as you can see, the thickness of this wall here seems to be the same as this one. And then with these two lines over here, the thickness of these walls seem to be about the same. So I'm going to type in join, and now I've joined those two lines, and then these two lines over here are separate. So now I'm going to use the offset command, and you can offset by a distance. As you look through all the prompts here, there's a bunch. So you can offset by a distance, which would be something nice and calculated. If this drawing was to scale and I knew that this was a cinder block wall, then I would say, oh, well, it's probably 11 5/8, or maybe it's 11 5/8 plus, stucco. So I don't know that information. So my best bet right now is to just go with this through point option. And so I just clicked through point, and now it's just letting me actively pick anywhere that I want to offset this kind of this polyline too. So I'm just clicking here, and there we go. Now I have kind of two lines that look a little bit like they are making a wall. I'm just going to go to the end of both of those and draw another line, and then hold shift to add that to my selection. So if you select one line, you select another line, you can hold shift to add it to your selection and just keep adding. And if you ever grab a line that you don't mean to pick up, you can hold control and click on that line again, and then that will remove it from your selection. So now I'm just hitting J on my keyboard, and it's going to autofill for the command join, and unless I hover over it, and then it gets weird. But so now those are joined into, as it says up here in my command prompts, three curves joined into one open curve. So that's one open curve. What you can also do is type in close curve, and now it's going to add a line segment right here, and now this is a closed curve, and is super nice because this is going to help you a lot in other steps of this process. So I'm just going to hit escape a couple times, because if you deselect a curve, sometimes you still have those little control points on. So I'm just going to hit escape twice. And then I'm going to select this other curve. I'm going to grab the control point of that. I'm just going to move it over. And now I've got these two curves that are joined. I'm just going to use offset once again. And I'm going to press T for through point. And now I've got these two curves kind of creating or implying a wall over here. So I can't join those together at this time because there's only the like, they're not actually touching each other. So if I draw this little short segment here and then hit J for join and hit enter, they join into one open curve. And then over here on this side, you can see I've got something a little bit more complicated. I've got actually one wall over here and another wall over here kind of diverging. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick one of those. I'm going to zoom in real far, and I'm just going to pick a good spot. I'm going to go in the middle of that, and I'm going to hold shift as I draw vertically, and I'm going to draw the horizontal for that other door. And then as you see this, like over here, it was very blurry, didn't really make a lot of sense, but over here, you know, it looks a little bit more defined. So I'm actually going to drag, like click and drag. Actually, you can't do that. So what I will do is, as you saw, as I had this selected, and then I tried to click and drag, I actually was dragging the image. So a good thing to do is also to make another layer, and this will just be called reference images, or just reference. And I'm just going to select both of these pictures just by clicking one and then holding shift to click the other. And I'm going to right click on reference, and I'm going to say change object layer. And then in my layers manager over here, I'm just going to click this little lock icon. And now you can see that I can't do anything to select those images, but I can still select my lines. So now I can do what I was trying to do before, which is I can now have this line selected, and I can drag my cursor to select these 2 points. And then I'm just going to type in move, and then I'm going to hold shift to move orthogonally, and then I'm going to just move both of those 2 points over here to the left, and I feel like that just lines up a little bit better. And now I'm going to go with offset again, but since last time I used offset through point and didn't use the actual distance, I don't actually have a distance to use, but I would want it to be the same kind of offset as this situation over here was. But so fortunately, it actually remembers what that distance is. So if you do an offset through point, and then you offset a bunch of curves right after that, you can skip the through point process, and you can just go straight to just regular offset, and it'll be going off of a distance that it remembers. So you'll just hit offset, and then you'll just click, and that's it. So the next thing I want to show you is a really useful command, and it's called extend. So I'm just going to be extending these two curves to hit this boundary. So I had to have this curve selected already. So I typed in extend with that curve selected, and that's essentially the boundary. And I want these two curves to like come up and meet this. That way everything can join in a real nice continuous fashion. So I'm just clicking each of the curves that I want to meet and intersect with this one. And now it's pretty much done. So, but now you can see I have this over here and this over here are kind of two separate regions divided by this other offset curve that I created. So what you can do now is select these, and you could select them one at a time if they're separate. You could select them, you know, just once if they're joined. And I'm going to type in trim. And now I'm just going to click that curve that was in between them, and it just removed that for me. So really useful command. And now I can just hit join, and it's going to join anything that's continuous, obviously. So these two here, they don't actually touch, so they're not going to join. But now I have this, and I have this, and I'm starting to kind of understand where my doors are. And what I'm doing for right now is I'm just drawing everything. I'm not going to go through and make each door. I'm just going to make all the doors at the end, because most likely they're all the same size door. This, and this, they're probably the same size door. Potentially this could be a different size, but it's probably not. It's probably the same size door. Over here we got a closet. You know, this is a good thing to look at, just analyzing a plan and trying to understand what you're seeing in it. And once you do that, you'll be able to figure out a lot of ways to start justifying relationships and making assumptions on what dimensions would have been. This door is definitely smaller than that, so I could guess that maybe these are all 3-foot doors, and then this is a 2'6" door, or a 2'8" or 2'10", kind of smaller, weird door, because it's only going to a closet. No one's walking through it, so I don't really care if the door feels a little small. The other thing to think about too in terms of scaling is we have this grid here. What is that grid? Is it tile? I don't know, but you could look up pictures of the Venturi house interior. You could look up pictures of the kitchen, which is what this area is, this part of the living room, and you can start trying to figure out, like, what am I looking at here? Is this carpet? Is this tile? Is it linoleum? Same question for in here. And what you can end up trying to figure out is, if this is tile, then it's probably on some kind of modular tile sizing format. So they might be 4 inches, they might be 3.5. But if you start getting things close, as you start building up this drawing that you're tracing of this plan, you'll start to get closer and closer, and then eventually you'll measure these tiles if you were to draw them, and you'll be like, I think everything's really close, and I'll measure these tiles, and then if all of a sudden, hey, those tiles are all like almost 4 inches, if they're 3 and some crazy 64ths fraction, then guess what? They're probably 4-inch tiles. And then you could just scale to that and then start adjusting everything from there. But so that's kind of the gist of just getting started here. It's really about, you want to create these images, you want to get them locked into place, and then once they're there, you can start manipulating them, start drawing over top of them, and once you have a little bit of a drawing to work from, then it's going to be at least a little bit easier to scale from there. One of the things that I would consider, is just maybe draw some of the outline of the overall building. Don't get too fussy with the interiors. Like, don't do the bathtub yet. Don't do every little dashed line. Get yourself halfway there. And then when you've started to see some semblance of a line work drawing that you've created in Rhino, then start scaling it and trying to get it to make sense. And then you can kind of go back and edit what you've already done. And for this project, we don't expect you to get it, within some kind of precise tolerance, but we do want you to try and get it close. So do your best, and I will see you guys in the long format video, and just let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Bye.